Alright, me. It is January 25th, and I've just finished reading Shakespeare's As You Like It. Um, Certainly, there are much more important things going on in the world that I'm distracting myself by continuing to read. But that is where I am at this point. Pretty much another nothing burger. I feel like this entire January has been nothing but just nothing burger after nothing burger. Certainly, I've enjoyed quite a few things, but nothing truly substantial, right? And I say this because even though this is a Shakespeare piece, and therefore there's the inherent quality or insistence or belief that anything written by Shakespeare is inherently important, right? This falls very much into the line of populist fiction, right? This is one of those pieces that is fairly well known to come from a different piece. I believe it was a romantic novel that was then adapted into a stage play by William Shakespeare. I believe that's how it came about. And it reads, it acts, it does everything as it is, as just a populist piece, right? It's a comedy. You know, we're not into the tragic comedies yet, or the comedic tragedies yet. We are 1599, I believe. So this is right before, we get into some of the really, really big pieces that have massive cultural touchstones. This is also right after Will Kemp leaves his acting troupe, I believe. Which, I mean, you can tell, right? Because the thing with, Will Kemp in acting and things is that it is this very slapstick comedy type character, right? It's Charlie Chaplin, and there's a very quick change from the clown and the jester roles and becoming what we understand Shakespeare writing them as, of where these comic and jester roles eventually become like this stand-in for Shakespeare in a way, of where they are comedic but they tell the truth a great deal, right? Or they're the only ones with complete and absolute insight, versus I think a lot of early Shakespeare works in which the fool tends to just be the fool, right? So yeah, that's that. This is one that I feel like gets performed relatively often, and I think this has had the kind of the opposite trajectory of Merchant of Venice, in which, right, Merchant of Venice was popular, and then fell off really, really quickly. And I feel like this has had the opposite trajectory, of where there's a lot of this belief of where it is this, or treating as kind of like one of the lower Shakespeare plays, and then has become really, really popular really, really quickly. And a lot of that I think has to do with, right, one of these very famous Shakespeare tropes of this gender role play, right? Because you have your two main women in Rosalind. God, does Shakespeare love the name Rosalind? And Celia, who end up being, Rosalind ends up being banished from her kingdom, and Celia goes with her. They're cousins, and Celia's dad becomes the new duke and banishes Rosalind's father. Rosalind eventually gets banished, and then Celia goes with her, and in order to escape, they dress as men, right? I can't remember, what name does Rosalind take? What name does Rosalind take? So Rosalind takes Ganymede. Celia takes, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's just alien with another A at the end. Alina, I guess would be how I would pronounce it. And so they go and they escape into the woods to find Rosalind's father dressed as boys, right? And, through quick, quirky turns of events and things, we eventually get to this point of where you have Orlando, who was the love interest of Rosalind at the very beginning, of where they immediately fall in love, and then Rosalind gets banished. And so we have Orlando and Rosalind dressed as Ganymede. And then Rosalind as Ganymede tells Orlando to act like he is Rosalind, because one of the big other issues is that they fall in love immediately and they're immediately smitten for each other. But then Orlando can't figure out how to talk to her. He just immediately freezes anytime when he saw Rosalind. And so you have this really interesting thing of where you have Rosalind, who is in Shakespeare theatrical times, right? You have a young boy playing Rosalind. So you have a boy playing a girl, who was then dressed as a boy playing Ganymede, who was then acting as a girl, right? And so you were going through these depths and depths of gender, of just this fascinating, what is the truth, and how do you act and portray those things. You also get this very weird epilogue in which, or I should say, you have this ending piece in which you have Rosalind as Ganymede, basically where she gets to choose who she marries, right? And she chooses Orlando, right? But she goes through this whole thing of, if she comes back as Rosalind, then she'll marry Orlando, which she does. But if she comes back as Ganymede, she'll marry this other fucking person, this other girl. I don't remember who the other girl's name is. But it's one of these kind of odd movements of like, this is another play on gender here. You then also get with, I can remember the other girl because I can talk about her in a second. It's not Audrey. That's Oliver and Orlando. That's Sylvius. Phoebe. That's the Phoebe. Phoebe's the girl I'm thinking of. And so you have this whole thing of where Phoebe's really in love with Rosalind dressed as Ganymede. But then it's the description of who Ganymede is very much like, that is very clearly a girl who is just wearing boy clothes, right? And then you get into this fun thing of what does it mean to be any gender specifically? What is the attractions of any gender specifically? Rosalind at the end, during the epilogue, is very much like if I were a boy, I would do this. If I were a girl, I would do this, with the audience. And I can't think of any other Shakespeare play that has an epilogue like that, of like, even in comedies, of like this main character coming out and going, yeah, I intentionally dressed as a boy or as a girl in these specific scenes, but I'm neither and I'm both. So yeah, very, so I think in that way, like this play has a lot more modern relevance than it has previously, in terms of what people want to look at and things. Obviously the thing that this play is really known for is the All the World's a Stage monologue by Jacques, which it's a fascinating monologue because it's spoken by Jacques, who is kind of a nobody in the play, right? He's like a featured side character, but not really, right? He's like any of the basic lords that are in the Scottish play, or like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in Hamlet, right? Of where like he's just in a few things and he's not this super important person in any of this. But he gets what might be, I mean, probably the second or third most quoted Shakespeare thing, which is All the World's a Stage. So fascinating choice there, right? And, you know, it's my belief, as well as the belief of some, I want to say like 1700s to 1800s to even 1900s critics, of where by giving it to Jacques and giving this really important monologue to Jacques that's a page long, as well as with the title of the play, As You Like It, right? The point of the play is that it is just populist fiction, right? And it is not something that is intriguing or interesting, right? It is how you, the audience, want things to be done, right? There's nothing major to discuss here until we get into the further points and the finer points of gender identity, right? Sure, there's a little bit of forgiveness and, you know, importance of family and inheritance and things, right? But in all, right, things just kind of occur, and then there's 4 weddings at the end, and we all celebrate, we all go home happy, right? There's nothing to be talked about here, right? And so it is very much in line with this, all the world's a stage, and we all have our own part to play, because we are all acting for each other, right? And this is, you know, the Shakespeare portion of, I would love to be able to write and do what I would like to do, but in order to get to that point of being in this midlife or late midlife, I must first go through these steps and just make people want to watch me in the first place and think that I'm good at this stuff. Because that's how you then get the ability / respect in capitalist economy to then do what you want to do and tackle these important things. So yeah. I think that's it for As You Like It. Yeah.